Episode 4 of NRL Fantasy School, we're going to have a look at breaking down Halves Players, and we're going to use Dylan Brown for this. Now, Dylan Brown, he's had a couple of low years uh, in the last two seasons. He's only turning 26, so we're not really age regressing him. And if you watched any of the internationals in the off season, he actually scored 70, then 75, and then 106 fantasy points through the three games of internationals. But what we need to be very mindful of there as well, though, is that's in a star-studded international team, also against weaker opponents. And it doesn't really simulate him going to a bottom of the ladder Newcastle Knights team too well. Okay, but there's definitely two different scenarios here that we need to look at, and they're extremely different, as you're going to find out. The first is Dylan Brown playing right half in an actual halfback role with Fletcher Sharp as a running 5'8" at 6. The second scenario is Sandon Smith actually playing in the traditional halfback role on the right, freeing up Dylan Brown to be his normal running 5'8" role in the 6. So what we're going to do is look at the Dylan Brown Fletcher Sharp situation first. Now, of course, we're going to be using our own platform for this, but there is no other site anywhere that has the stuff we've got that makes this a lot easier. So the first thing we're going to look at, the first question in my mind is Mitch Moses has had a few injuries over the last 2 years. So does Dylan Brown's couple of low seasons have anything to do with Moses being in or out of the team? You could think that with Moses being out of the team, that means Dylan Brown needs to take more of a leadership role and isn't playing his normal running 5'8" game. So maybe that's pulling him down when that's the case. Would be a great sounding theory. In fantasy over the years, I've heard a lot of theories. But one thing I've noticed is people that come up with these theories very rarely actually go back and test them and see if they actually have any merit. So let's see if that actually has any merit at all. So in our analytics page, we're going to set our filters to half. We're just going to have a look at the 24 and the 25 seasons. And we can see here that he scored, averaged 48.75 in 2024 with 4.2 points in kicking. If we peel that away, it comes to about 44.5. And then in 2025, he averaged, what have we got here? 41 and a half minus 1.5, about 40 points without any kicking meters. Okay, let's see if that changes at all with or without Moses. So 45.95 across the two seasons, 3 points in kicking, going to call that about 43. What I'm going to do first is have a look with Moses. And in those games, he actually averaged 42, losing, about 40 points without any kicking. So he actually scored lower with Mitch Moses than he actually averaged the entire time. So we can see there's no negative impact in that scenario there at all. We can totally just scrap that and forget it. Okay, so let's have a look at, let's open this up a bit, just still focusing on his half games. We can see he was averaging 54, 55 in 22, 23. It came back a bit in 24 and then came back quite a bit in 25. Now, no, this isn't because of his change of role playing centre, because we've already set the filter to just his halves games. So he did regress a bit year on year over the last two seasons. Okay. Let's have a look at how Parramatta actually did over that time. And we know that they haven't been so great. But let's just have a quick look. Let's go back to 23, round 27. So they were just outside of the 8 in 23. They were way down the bottom in 24. And then they were also mostly down the bottom in 25, a little bit of a late resurgence, which Dylan wasn't so much as part of. So we can see there that ladder position two seems to have impacted Dylan during that time. So we also need to be very cautious not to be getting optimistic looking at these numbers here, where he was in a stronger Parramatta team. We can see that the being in the weaker team has actually brought him down, and that is definitely the situation he's rolling into. Okay, so what I'm going to actually focus on 24, 25. I'm going to come back to just filtering those two seasons, and I'm going to focus in on on his average across the two. Now, what I need to do, what I'm going to also do here is to start breaking that up. So what I want to know is kicking meter points, total points, no kicking points. And we're going to, this averages out to 79.38 minutes. So I'm not going to bother about doing any, having to mess about with any PPMs here. We're just going to treat it as 80-minute numbers. So his total was 45.9, taking any goal kicking out of the equation. Something else that our site makes it really easy to do is go straight to the non-goal kicking number if you always also want to be kind of splitting that out as well. Okay, his kick points were 3.2. So his points without kicking is the difference of those. Okay. And the reason why I'm splitting that out is now we're going to treat kicking as something completely separate. Okay. Now we've got this is another totally unique page on our site. You won't find this anywhere else at all. We have a spine kicking meters page. So we're interested in looking at Dylan Brown being in a more senior kicking role. So I'm going to choose halves partner Mitch Moses, but then I'm going to exclude. I'm going to have a look over the last two seasons. So over the last 2 years, when Moses wasn't there, Dean Hawkins took and Ronald Volkman both kind of took a larger role. Dejan Arce did as well, so they're not great to look at. Blaze Talangi. Blaze Talangi would give us more of a kind of indication of what to kind of expect with Sharp. So if we have a look at those games there where he was partnered with Blaze, I'm going to take that exclude off, sorry, partnered with Blaze Talangi, he was actually doing about 65, 66% of the kicking. Blaze Talangi doing about 10. Joey Lussick doing about 10. Clinton Gutherson giving him some support from fullback. Okay. I'm going to have a look at the same now. Going to open up another tab for this. Now I'm going to have a look at Sharp. So Fletcher Sharp, we can leave it with anyone. only had about 6% of the kicking meters. Um, very much the right half did most of the kicking. Nothing much from the hooker, and Kalen Ponga supporting with about 20%. Okay, so that's kind of very much sort of what I'd expect. Jack Cogger did quite a bit. Phoenix Crossan did quite a bit. Everyone did quite a bit. So looking off both of those, I would kind of expect something similar here. I'd expect to be seeing Fletcher Sharp doing maybe about 8%. Kalen Ponga contributing, I think 20 is a good number. Not much from the dummy half. And Brown contributing about 70. Okay. Now, when in our own resources, this is something tricky to do just from scratch, is to guess kind of what sort of kicking meters that would come out to. Um, a good indicator here, probably a good indicator here is that about 70%, 70% comes to about 400. So let's take that. So we're going to give him about 400 meters kicking, and that's divided by 30 because there's 1 point for every 30 meters kicking. So we'd expect him to get about 13 points a game from the boot. Okay. Now that would take him up 42.7, 30. That'd take him up to about 56 points. Okay. And that sounds pretty attractive. Let's have a quick look again at what he's actually priced at. Oh, what am I doing? I can just do this on our site. So much easier. Go to player profile. Dylan Brown, 486K, priced at 38.2 points. Okay. 486K priced at 38.2 points. Plenty of value there if he's partnering sharp. Our projection for him actually came in at about 57, 58. So kind of similar number. Okay. Now let's have a look at how different things would be though if he's partnering Sandon. So we've still got this, nothing here changes, but this is going to be very different. Okay. So again, we were looking at him being priced at 38.2. So let's just make a note of that here. Okay. And let's have a look at how things would shape up if he was actually partnering Sandon Smith. So what I'm going to do now is have a look at Sandon Smith gains in the halves. Okay. We can see there that he kicked about 30%, but they're always with pretty handy kickers. Yep. Let's have a look at his game log. How many games where he's had more than 60% of the kicking meters? And none at NRL level. Let's have a look in reserve grade. Sometimes you just have to refresh this if you're doing filtering. Sandon Smith playing half. Okay, and we're getting quite a few hits. Let's open his kicking up. Okay. So we can see here that in back in lower grades in New South Wales Cup, he has had plenty of experience of actually being the absolute primary kicker. In fact, let's bump that up to 75%. Yeah. And we can see here he's been the man kicking totally before. Now, going back to Dylan Brown, I want to go back to our spine kicking meters page. Dylan Brown's strength is being a running 5'8", far more than actually being a general. So what I'm really interested in is when he's actually playing Mitchell Moses with Mitchell Moses, 324 and 25, and again he's only getting about 10% of the kicking meters. And don't forget, Kalen Pong is still going to be in the equation as well. So I'd probably be expecting Brown to be getting the 10% here, with Ponga still getting about 20, and now with Sandon Smith, though, kicking for about 70. So the 10% for the Knights last year, well, let's not look at the Eels, let's go back to the Knights. So going to look at who mainly played in the halves last year. They were chopping and changing everywhere. Yeah, let's scrap that. Let's just go back to 24, 25. Moses. Yeah, I'll just stick with that. So let's put him down for 60 metres a game average. So that'd be 2 points, average of 2 points a game. Okay. But now that 2 points only brings him to around 45. So priced at 38, probably going to get about 45. Don't forget, one of those years was even lower. So that's not even shaping up as 10 points of value. And if we go back to his analytics, just looking at his halves games, let's not forget that in 2025, with the Eels really struggling, he only averaged 41.5. Okay, and that was with almost 2 points a game in kicking. So I think going after Dylan Brown, if he doesn't have the primary kicking role, and in a Knights team that's expected to really struggle, I think that there's definitely passable value there myself. That is how I would break it down. I would caution people to think of Jerome Luai this year at West Tigers. A lot of people was talking about him being the man at the Tigers and really stepping out from under the of Cleary's shadow. Um, but he only averaged like 37. He underperformed what we gave him cautiously. So I'd be pretty. My own read would be pretty cautious there. But this is the thing with fantasy footy, how you actually interpret the data and what numbers you decide to allocate is completely up to you. But what this video has really been about is how to break it down, how to um, look at these halves plays, look at them without any kicking points, then have assess what the kicking role would actually be and how many points that would make up, and then put the score back together again is the best approach. Now, in our next episode, I may not get to do that on Sunday. It'll probably be on Monday. What we'll do is we'll have a look at breaking down a couple of wingers. Okay, thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you next time.